Missouri holds secrets the living rarely speak of. In these graveyards, the dead do not rest. Tombstones crack under unseen pressure, shadows drift where no one walks, and whispers ride the wind long after midnight. For centuries, tragedies have been carved into these grounds: murders, accidents, forgotten stories of sorrow, and those who linger sometimes find the past reaching out. Some say the air grows heavier as night falls, footsteps echo where none should exist, and eyes watch from the darkness. Tonight, we step beyond the living world, into cemeteries where history bleeds into the present, and restless spirits refuse to be ignored. Welcome back to our channel, the place where history's darkest tales come alive. On this journey, we will uncover the 15 most haunted cemeteries in Missouri, each one marked by ghostly figures, unexplained sounds, and chilling encounters that defy reason. You will hear stories that have been whispered for generations, see the places where the line between life and death blurs, and witness the places where spirits linger, unwilling or unable to move on. Keep your senses sharp and your courage close, because some of these graveyards are far more than resting places. They are windows into the restless past, waiting to reveal their secrets to anyone willing to enter. Haunted Cemetery Number 1. Bellefontaine Cemetery, St. Louis. Bellefontaine Cemetery in St. Louis is more than a resting place. It is a landscape of shadows where the past refuses to stay buried. Established in the early 1800s, this sprawling cemetery holds the graves of some of Missouri's most notable figures, but it also carries stories of sorrow, tragedy, and restless spirits. Visitors often report a heavy, almost suffocating feeling as they walk the winding paths. Some speak of hearing footsteps behind them on empty lanes, only to turn and find no one there. Others claim to see figures in old-fashioned clothing gliding between the tombstones, fading when approached, yet leaving a cold imprint on the air. There are accounts of phantom carriages rolling silently through the grounds, the sound of hooves and wheels echoing without cause. At night, shadows seem to stretch and move independently of the trees, and some gravestones appear worn or cracked as if touched by invisible hands. Bellefontaine Cemetery has also been the site of chilling photographs. Unexplained orbs, faint faces, and shadowy figures appear in images, visible only when the camera captures the space where no living person stands. Visitors have described feeling a presence behind them, sometimes guiding, sometimes warning. A few have reported whispers, low, sorrowful, sometimes urgent, that vanish the moment someone tries to listen closely. One story tells of a man who paused near a crypt, sensing a cold hand brush against his shoulder. When he turned, the space was empty, yet the chill remained, lingering in his bones. Bellefontaine is not only a cemetery, it is a threshold. The lives buried here echo through time, and their stories seem to demand acknowledgement. As you walk among the tombstones, imagine the centuries of lives and deaths, the grief, the unfinished stories. Can you feel it, the faint pressure of something unseen, moving just beyond the corner of your eye? Perhaps it is the soul of the past reminding you that here, in Bellefontaine Cemetery, death is not the end. Number 2. Calvary Cemetery, St. Louis. Calvary Cemetery in St. Louis is one of the oldest and largest cemeteries in Missouri, stretching across rolling hills and shadowed lanes that seem to whisper stories from centuries past. Established in the 1850s, it is the final resting place for thousands, including pioneers, soldiers, and ordinary citizens whose lives ended in sorrow or tragedy. But Calvary is not silent. Those who venture into its depths after dark speak of a presence that watches from the shadows, unseen eyes that seem to follow every step along the narrow paths. Visitors have reported hearing the soft shuffle of shoes on gravel where no one walks, or the distant echoes of voices carried on the wind, urgent yet unintelligible. On quiet nights, some claim to see shadowy figures drifting between the headstones, shapes that resemble monks or women in old-fashioned clothing, their faces hidden, their movements deliberate and silent. One local recounts walking alone through a section of the cemetery and feeling a cold weight settle on their shoulders, as though someone or something was standing directly behind them, refusing to be acknowledged. Calvary Cemetery is also known for strange photographic phenomena. Cameras capture fleeting shadows, flickers of light, and unexplained mists that cannot be attributed to fog or condensation. Several visitors have reported ghostly apparitions hovering above the older graves, some appearing translucent, others almost solid as if frozen in time. Many of these apparitions have been described as mourning figures, hands raised in grief, faces contorted in sorrow, frozen in the moment of death. A particularly chilling story tells of a caretaker who, while performing his duties late one night, heard the unmistakable sound of a baby crying in the distance. Following the sound, he found an empty section of the cemetery, long abandoned and overgrown. The cries stopped abruptly, replaced by the faint rustle of leaves as though someone or something had passed him by. In that moment, he felt a presence pressing close, heavy and unrelenting, before vanishing entirely. Calvary Cemetery's haunting is subtle yet relentless. It is not the violent, screaming spirits of legend, but a persistent sense that the lives buried here are not at peace. The ground is hallowed by history, tragedy, and memories that refuse to fade. As you walk through its lanes, you feel the chill in the air, the pressure on your back, the whispers that vanish when you turn to look. Calvary Cemetery challenges every visitor to confront the reality that some souls linger, unwilling or unable to leave, reminding us that in certain places the past never truly dies. Number 3. Valhalla Cemetery, St. Louis. Valhalla Cemetery sits quietly on the outskirts of St. Louis, a place of both beauty and unease. Established in the early 20th century, it is a sprawling graveyard, its manicured paths lined with towering tombstones and ancient oaks whose branches stretch like skeletal fingers across the graves. By day it seems peaceful, almost serene. By night, however, Valhalla Cemetery transforms into a landscape where shadows move with a life of their own and the air feels thick with unseen presence. Those who have walked its grounds after dark speak of an overwhelming sense that they are being watched. Footsteps echo behind them even when the lanes are empty, and cold drafts seem to follow no logical path, brushing against the skin in impossible directions. Visitors describe seeing figures in long coats or hooded cloaks gliding between the graves. Some vanish when approached, while others seem to observe silently, a faint outline lingering in the corner of the eye long after you look away. Photographs taken here often reveal strange anomalies, shadowy shapes between headstones, orbs of light hovering above the ground, and misty figures that cannot be explained by natural conditions. Paranormal investigators have claimed to capture EVP recordings in which faint whispers call out names or plead for help, voices that appear to come from the very earth itself. One chilling account tells of a group of friends who spent the evening exploring the older sections of the cemetery. As they approached a stone mausoleum, one of them suddenly felt hands grip their shoulders. When they turned, no one was there, and yet the chill remained, seeping into their bones. Some visitors have reported more tangible experiences. A man recalled sitting near the cemetery's central crypt when he saw a child, pale and silent, wandering between the graves. The child's gaze met him for a heartbeat before dissolving into the night, leaving behind a lingering sense of profound sadness. Others have claimed that certain tombstones are hot spots of activity, radiating an eerie energy that produces shivers, nausea, or the sense of being pulled toward them by an unseen force. Valhalla Cemetery's haunting is subtle but undeniable. It is not loud or violent, but insistent, a quiet reminder that the lives buried here are not entirely at rest. Walking its grounds forces a confrontation with the past, its tragedies, mysteries, and unquiet spirits. You feel the chill creeping along the paths, hear the faint rustle of movement in the darkness, or sense the gaze of something unseen. At Valhalla Cemetery, death is not an ending. It is an echo, a whisper, and sometimes a presence that refuses to leave. Number 4. Woodlawn Cemetery, Independence. Woodlawn Cemetery in Independence is a place where the line between the living and the dead seems almost invisible. Established in the mid-1800s, it holds generations of local families, unknown travelers, and countless unmarked graves that seem to guard secrets better left untouched. Walking through its winding paths, visitors often report an eerie sensation that the ground itself remembers, as if the very soil holds whispers from centuries past. Many have spoken of seeing gravestones that appear to move slightly when no one is watching, as if the dead are restless beneath the earth. Phantom cries echo faintly across the cemetery, sorrowful wails that rise and fall with no clear source. On moonless nights, spectral figures appear along the paths, some dressed in tattered clothing from decades gone by. These figures seem aware of your presence, their movements deliberate, yet when approached they vanish like smoke in the wind. One chilling account tells of a woman who wandered near a cluster of unmarked graves. She felt a cold pressure on her chest, heard whispered voices calling her name, and glimpsed shadows that darted between the headstones. When she ran toward the main road, the sensation lingered, a heavy unease pressing against her as if unseen hands had followed her. Others report that certain areas of the cemetery carry a profound silence, broken only by soft sobs or distant whispers, prompting visitors to feel they are intruding on a world not meant for the living. Woodlawn Cemetery also has its share of visual anomalies. Photographs taken at night often reveal faint, translucent figures among the trees and tombstones, glowing orbs hovering above the ground, or shadows that do not match the surroundings. Paranormal enthusiasts have recorded strange EVP sounds, hurried footsteps, faint voices, and on more than one occasion, the unmistakable ringing of a bell when no structure in the area contains one. The haunting of Woodlawn Cemetery is persistent. It is not violent or malevolent, but insistent, like a story that refuses to be forgotten. Each gravestone, each path, seems to hum with memory, drawing the curious deeper into its mysteries. You hear the faint cries carried on the wind, see the shadowy forms shifting just out of reach, or feel the pressure of unseen eyes watching every move. In Woodlawn Cemetery, the past is alive, waiting for the living to recognize that some graves hold more than bones, they hold echoes that will not rest. Number 5. Mount Washington Cemetery. Mount Washington Cemetery is a place where the air itself feels heavy with sorrow and memory. Established in the late 1800s, the cemetery is dotted with centuries-old gravestones, family mausoleums, and narrow winding paths that twist through shaded groves. The stories told here speak of spirits that refuse to remain silent, restless souls wandering among the living long after their bodies have returned to the earth. Visitors often recount hearing the sound of mourning women echoing faintly through the trees, their cries sorrowful yet eerily distant. These apparitions are not seen in full form, but glimpsed as shadows moving along the paths, fleeting images in the corner of the eye, disappearing when one looks directly. Some who have ventured deeper into the older sections report ghostly children playing, their laughter sharp and hollow, ringing through the night with a sense of unnatural repetition, as if trapped in an endless loop of joy and despair. Gravestones here seem to hold their own secrets. Many appear freshly disturbed, sunk slightly into the ground or tilted at odd angles, despite no maintenance taking place overnight. Caretakers have noted footprints in the soil, impressions of boots and shoes that appear and disappear with no logical explanation. Photographs taken on cloudy nights often reveal wisps of light hovering over the graves, translucent figures kneeling or walking silently among the stones. EVP recordings have captured soft whispering voices, footsteps pacing along deserted paths, and on occasion, the faint creak of gates swinging open when the cemetery is locked and empty. Mount Washington Cemetery is a place where history and the paranormal intertwine. The weight of countless lives lived and lost here seems to saturate the very ground, leaving a lingering presence that stretches beyond the grave. The shadows move with purpose, the sounds carry intent, and the atmosphere is thick with stories untold and spirits unacknowledged. In this cemetery, the living are never truly alone, and the past remains present, a constant reminder that some souls cannot or will not rest. Number 6. Forest Park Cemetery, St. Louis. Forest Park Cemetery, often whispered about among locals, is a burial ground with an unsettling reputation. Known by some as the Cemetery of the Civil War Dead, it is said to hold the lingering spirits of soldiers who fought and died during one of America's darkest chapters. Walking its grounds is an experience that blends history and fear, where the boundary between the past and the present feels dangerously thin. The cemetery is tied to countless reports of apparitions in period uniforms. Visitors claim to see figures dressed in Confederate and Union garb standing silently near crumbling headstones or wandering between rows of graves. These soldiers appear solid at first glance, only to fade when approached. Some have even described hearing the faint rustle of wool coats, the clink of a belt buckle, or the steady rhythm of boots on gravel, though no one is there. One of the most chilling features of Forest Park Cemetery is the sudden drop in temperature. Entire sections of the graveyard feel unnaturally cold, even on humid Missouri nights. People report walking into invisible pockets of icy air, their breath misting despite the warmth around them. Paranormal investigators have logged these cold zones with temperature meters, watching the readings plummet without explanation. In these same areas, many claim to feel watched, their movements tracked by unseen eyes from the shadows. The energy here is not only tied to the soldiers. Locals whisper about other spectral figures. A weeping woman who appears near the older graves, clutching flowers that dissolve into smoke, and the faint glow of lanterns drifting through the trees, as if carried by caretakers long dead. EVPs recorded at the cemetery have captured faint whispers, names being spoken, and at times the unmistakable sound of gunfire echoing from the distance, though no battle has been fought here in more than a century. Forest Park Cemetery is more than a burial ground. It is a place where Missouri's violent history refuses to be silenced. The Civil War left deep scars, and here, those scars bleed into the present. Every shift of shadow, every unexplained chill, and every ghostly figure serves as a reminder that the dead are not always at rest. Number 7. Oak Grove Cemetery, Jefferson City. Oak Grove Cemetery in Jefferson City is one of Missouri's most unnerving graveyards, not because of its size or grandeur, but because of the overwhelming sense that something unseen walks beside you. By day, the grounds appear peaceful, weathered gravestones, towering trees, and quiet paths that weave through the resting places of generations past. But when the sun dips below the horizon, the atmosphere shifts. The silence becomes heavy, and the cemetery takes on a darker, almost predatory presence. One of the most commonly reported phenomena here are the phantom footsteps. Visitors have spoken of walking the paths late at night, only to hear the crunch of gravel following directly behind them. The steps keep pace, growing louder the more the person quickens their stride, yet when they turn around, no one is there. Some describe the sensation of being herded, as if invisible figures are directing them toward the crypts that dot the cemetery's older sections. There are also chilling accounts of disembodied voices. Witnesses have claimed to hear their own names whispered from the shadows, soft at first, then louder as though someone unseen is calling them forward. Others report the sound of children laughing and playing, even though no children are present. The voices often come from the same part of the cemetery, near the oldest crypts, where ornate stone doors are sealed shut, hiding families long since forgotten by history. The crypts themselves are said to be a focal point of paranormal activity. People have seen shadowy figures lingering near them, sometimes darting between the stone structures, other times standing perfectly still, watching. These shadows are unnaturally dark, even when the moon is bright, and they seem to move against the natural flow of light. Paranormal investigators who've spent time in this area describe camera malfunctions, drained batteries, and sudden temperature drops that come without warning. Some locals believe the spirits here are restless because of vandalism and grave robbing that took place decades ago. Disturbed graves and stolen relics may have left these souls unsettled, forever wandering among the tombstones they once called home. Others think the voices and shadows belong to the original founders of Jefferson City, men and women who refuse to let the living forget their presence. Walking through Oak Grove Cemetery at night is not an experience for the faint of heart. Between the phantom footsteps, the whispers that call out into the darkness, and the unnatural shadows slipping through the crypts, it's a place where history and the supernatural remain intertwined. Those who visit often leave with more questions than answers and a lingering sense that something followed them home. Number 8. Oakwood Cemetery, Lebanon. Oakwood Cemetery in Lebanon is a place that takes on an entirely different life when night falls. By day, the rolling grounds and carefully kept headstones reflect the peace and respect of a traditional resting place. But when fog creeps in after sundown, Oakwood becomes something altogether more unsettling. Visitors who have wandered the cemetery late at night often report sights and sounds that defy reason, and it's why the grounds have earned a reputation as one of Missouri's most haunted graveyards. One of the most chilling experiences is the appearance of ghostly lanterns drifting through the mist. Many who walk the cemetery after dark describe soft orbs of light moving between the graves, swaying slowly as if carried by an unseen hand. These lights float along the pathways and sometimes vanish near the oldest graves. Some believe they are the spirits of caretakers who once tended the cemetery, continuing their rounds even in death. Others whisper that the lights belong to lost souls, still searching for loved ones they cannot find. The lanterns aren't the only strange occurrence here. Laughter, sharp, high-pitched, and unnatural, has been heard echoing across the cemetery when no one is present. Paranormal investigators have captured faint giggles on their recorders, sometimes accompanied by sudden bursts of static, as if the air itself becomes charged with energy. Locals claim this laughter is tied to children buried here during outbreaks of disease in the 1800s. While it may sound playful, many who hear it describe a sinister edge that leaves them chilled to the bone. Even more disturbing are the figures that appear atop the headstones. Witnesses have seen shadowy shapes materializing on the graves themselves, perched as if watching the living. Some report tall, thin figures, while others describe smaller, almost childlike forms. These apparitions vanish the moment they are approached, leaving behind only silence and a heavy feeling of being watched. In some cases, visitors swear the figures followed them with their eyes, turning their heads slowly before dissolving into the mist. Locals tell stories of travelers who stumbled into Oakwood Cemetery at night and ran in terror after spotting the lantern lights closing in from multiple directions, surrounding them. Some say the cemetery feeds on fear, drawing in those curious enough to walk its grounds and leaving them shaken, sometimes for years afterward. Oakwood Cemetery may look calm by day, but when the fog rolls in and the lanterns flicker to life, the atmosphere shifts into something menacing. Between the floating lights, eerie laughter, and silent watchers that perch on the headstones, it's no wonder Oakwood is spoken of in hushed tones. For those who enter, the line between the living and the dead becomes dangerously thin. Number 9. Greenwood Cemetery, Springfield. Greenwood Cemetery in Springfield is one of those places where the air itself feels thick with presence. Established in the 19th century, it has long been a resting place for generations of families, veterans, and community leaders. Yet what lies beneath the ground seems reluctant to stay still. The cemetery has gained a reputation as a gathering place for shadows, with visitors frequently reporting figures lurking among the trees, glowing eyes watching from the darkness, and a fog that behaves in ways no natural mist ever should. Many who walk the grounds at night say they sense they are not alone. Out of the corner of the eye, faint shapes appear, tall silhouettes moving just beyond the light, slipping between gravestones. When approached, the figures vanish, only to reappear at a distance, as though stalking those who dare to intrude. Paranormal investigators have described these shapes as intelligent, often positioning themselves where they can be seen, but never allowing anyone to come close. The most unnerving encounters involve the glowing eyes. Witnesses claim to have seen pairs of bright, unblinking lights staring at them from the tree line. At first mistaken for animals, the eyes are said to hover higher than a person's head, sometimes shifting in color from red to pale green. A few visitors report that when they shine flashlights into the trees, nothing is there, only empty branches swaying in the night air. The eyes remain visible even without reflection, leaving many convinced they belong to something not of this world. Then there is the fog. Greenwood's mist doesn't drift with the wind like natural vapor. Instead, witnesses describe it rolling in low and deliberate, coiling between graves and surrounding those who stand still too long. Some say the fog is thick enough to obscure even the nearest headstone, and within it, shadowy forms take shape. On several occasions, people claim to have walked through the fog only to emerge with icy chills that linger for hours, as if something passed through them. Stories from longtime Springfield residents warn against entering the cemetery alone at night. Teenagers who dared to explore often returned shaken, swearing they heard footsteps following them or whispers carried on the still air. One chilling tale tells of a man who entered Greenwood after dark and found himself encircled by the unnatural fog. He later claimed to have seen dozens of glowing eyes staring at him from the mist, watching silently until he fled in terror. Greenwood Cemetery does not roar with sound or chaos. Its terror lies in silence, in the quiet footsteps that follow, the stares that burn from the shadows, and the unnatural fog that creeps closer with every breath. For those who venture in after dark, the cemetery feels alive, as though something unseen is waiting for them and always watching. Number 10. Kingdom Cemetery, Kansas City. Kingdom Cemetery sits quietly on the outskirts of Kansas City, but locals know it as a place where silence is rarely empty. By day, it looks like any other burial ground, with rows of aging stones and patches of tall grass swaying in the breeze. But by night, when the moonlight falls across its fields, Kingdom Cemetery becomes a stage for the restless dead. Visitors have long reported seeing full-bodied apparitions wandering between the graves. These are not fleeting shadows or distant silhouettes. Some describe them as men and women in period clothing, standing so clearly in the moonlight that they appear solid, until with a blink they vanish into thin air. One of the most unsettling stories involves these figures appearing directly in front of mourners or late-night explorers. Witnesses recount being frozen in place as a pale figure locks eyes with them, silent and unmoving, before dissolving like smoke into the night air. On more than one occasion, ghost hunters claim to have captured voices calling out names, sometimes those of the living who were present at the time. It leaves many shaken, wondering how the spirits would know who they are. Even more unnerving are the reports of unseen hands. People walking through the cemetery often feel a sudden brush against their arm, a tug at their sleeve, or the unmistakable pressure of a hand pressing against their back. Some say the touches are light and almost guiding, while others describe them as forceful, as though trying to push them away. Many visitors leave abruptly after such encounters, unwilling to find out what the phantom grip intends. Voices also carry across Kingdom Cemetery's fields, even when no one else is there. They echo in the stillness, sometimes a single voice calling out, sometimes a chorus of murmurs drifting on the wind. Investigators say the sounds often come from different directions at once, making it impossible to tell where they originate. More than a few have compared the effect to being surrounded, as though the unseen residents of the cemetery gather close to observe the living. Locals avoid Kingdom Cemetery at night, warning that once you hear the whispers or feel the icy grip of unseen hands, the memory never leaves you. The apparitions, the voices, and the phantom touches combine to make this graveyard one of Missouri's most unnerving. In the quiet moonlight, Kingdom Cemetery feels alive with things that should not walk, should not touch, and should not speak but do. Number 11. Mount Olivet Cemetery, Hannibal. Mount Olivet Cemetery in Hannibal is more than a resting place. It is a site where history, tragedy, and whispers of the past still echo. Established in the 1800s, this cemetery holds the graves of soldiers, pioneers, and entire families lost to disease and hardship. But while the stones stand in solemn silence by day, the atmosphere changes drastically after dusk. Many visitors describe Mount Olivet as one of the most unsettling cemeteries in Missouri, with phenomena that blur the line between the living and the dead. The most frequently reported encounters are with phantom children. Visitors tell of hearing the sound of small footsteps following them between the rows of headstones, only to find no one there. Laughter, soft and eerie, has been captured on audio recordings. Some even say they've seen fleeting glimpses of children darting behind markers, appearing playful yet unnervingly pale. Paranormal investigators often bring toys to the site, and in chilling accounts, they've seen them move on their own, as though unseen hands were still at play. Cold spots are another hallmark of Mount Olivet. Even on warm summer nights, explorers describe sudden drops in temperature so severe that their breath fogs in the air. These icy currents are said to appear without warning, often accompanied by a sense of being watched. Investigators using thermal cameras report unexplained voids of heat moving across the grounds, shaped like human figures yet colder than the surrounding air. Standing in one of these cold spots is described as stepping directly into the presence of something unnatural. Perhaps the most startling phenomenon at Mount Olivet comes through photography. For decades, visitors have captured strange figures in their camera flashes, dark silhouettes, transparent forms, and faces that were not visible at the time the photos were taken. One story tells of a family visiting at dusk, who later discovered in their pictures a tall shadowy figure standing directly behind them. They swore no one had been there. Others claim their photos reveal glowing orbs hovering above graves, or misty shapes bending unnaturally in the frame. Mount Olivet's legends grow each year as new witnesses add their voices to the chilling chorus. Children who never grew old, shadows that creep into photographs, and a cold that doesn't belong, all these make the cemetery a gathering place for the unknown. Those who have walked its paths at night rarely forget the feeling of invisible eyes watching them from the dark. In Hannibal, Mount Olivet is more than a burial ground. It is a place where the veil between the living and the dead feels dangerously thin. Number 12, Bellevue Cemetery, Bellevue. Bellevue Cemetery, nestled in the quiet town of Bellevue, is a place where silence is anything but peaceful. The cemetery dates back to the 1800s, and its age shows in the worn tombstones, many of them leaning or cracked with time. At first glance, it feels like an ordinary country graveyard, small and forgotten by the world. But those who linger after sunset tell a much darker story. Bellevue Cemetery is rumored to be one of the most haunted burial grounds in Missouri. Visitors often report seeing shadowy figures moving among the aging stones. These shapes are not tied to any single grave, but instead drift through the cemetery, vanishing the moment someone tries to approach. Some claim the figures follow them, pacing slowly just at the edge of their vision. Others describe a chilling sensation, as though these shadows are not random apparitions, but purposeful presences that do not want to be disturbed. One of the most unnerving features of Bellevue is the appearance of unexplained lights. Locals speak of glowing orbs hovering near the oldest part of the cemetery, sometimes floating low to the ground, other times rising high above the trees. They flicker like lanterns but vanish when approached. Skeptics might dismiss them as fireflies or tricks of the eye, but those who have seen them up close insist the lights are deliberate, moving in ways that suggest intelligence rather than chance. Paranormal investigators often capture these glowing anomalies on camera, sometimes appearing as brilliant streaks across the night sky. The whispers are what truly unsettle those brave enough to visit after dark. Witnesses tell of voices carried on the wind, faint but unmistakable. Names are sometimes heard, called out in tones both mournful and urgent. Some visitors have been so convinced they were being spoken to that they've searched the cemetery for another living person, only to find themselves entirely alone. On the darkest nights, the whispers grow stronger, circling the grounds as though unseen souls are desperate to be heard. Locals warn that Bellevue Cemetery is not a place to take lightly. Those who trespass too long at night often report lingering feelings of unease, vivid nightmares, or the sense of being followed even after leaving the grounds. Whether the spirits here are lost, restless, or simply protective of their resting place, the accounts remain consistent. Bellevue is a cemetery where the past does not rest quietly. Among the crumbling stones and rustling trees, shadow figures, mysterious lights and ghostly whispers make Bellevue Cemetery one of Missouri's most chilling graveyards. Number 13. Maple Hill Cemetery, Hannibal. Maple Hill Cemetery in Hannibal is a sprawling historic graveyard that holds the memories and mysteries of the 19th century. Its rolling hills and old trees give it a serene appearance during the day, but when night falls, the cemetery transforms into a place of eerie and unshakable presence. Locals have long whispered about ghostly activity here, making Maple Hill one of Missouri's most haunted burial grounds. The most frequently reported encounters involve ghostly figures dressed in mourning attire. Visitors tell stories of seeing women in long black dresses or veils gliding silently between headstones. Sometimes they appear standing motionless, staring toward the living, only to vanish when approached. Other witnesses have described men in suits of the era, walking along paths that have long been abandoned, their faces pale and indistinct. Spectral carriages are another feature of Maple Hill's supernatural lore. On quiet nights, some claim to hear the rhythmic clatter of horse hooves along the gravel paths. The sound of carriage wheels and jingling harnesses grows louder as if passing nearby, yet when visitors look, the grounds are completely empty. Those who have reported these experiences often describe a feeling of being followed, a cold presence lingering just beyond sight, amplifying the tension of the night. Strange orbs of light add another layer of mystery to Maple Hill. Small spheres, glowing softly, drift along the cemetery paths or hover near certain graves. They move deliberately, sometimes circling visitors before disappearing into the trees. Paranormal investigators often capture these lights on video, documenting their inexplicable movements and sudden vanishing acts. Even more unsettling are the sounds that seem to rise from nowhere. Whispering voices, faint sobs, and occasional laughter have been recorded by those daring enough to explore the cemetery at night. Some visitors have felt invisible hands brushing against their shoulders or tugging at their clothing, though no one else is nearby. Maple Hill Cemetery's combination of spectral figures, phantom carriages, mysterious lights, and unexplained sounds makes it a chilling place where the past refuses to rest. Each visit leaves an indelible mark, as though the spirits of Hannibal's long-departed residents are still walking among the living, keeping their stories alive in the shadows. Number 14. Forest Grove Cemetery, St. Charles. Forest Grove Cemetery in St. Charles is a hauntingly beautiful graveyard, where towering trees and winding pathways provide a quiet refuge by day, but at twilight, the cemetery transforms into a place where the living are not entirely alone. Established in the 1800s, its oldest sections are home to worn and moss-covered gravestones that hide stories of tragedy, loss, and restless spirits. Visitors often report that once the sun sets, the air seems heavier, the shadows deeper, and an unshakable chill creeps through the grounds. One of the most commonly reported phenomena at Forest Grove is the sudden, unexplained drop in temperature. Walkers have described feeling icy gusts sweep across paths, sometimes localized around older graves, leaving goosebumps and shivers despite calm summer evenings. These cold spots are often accompanied by a sensation of being watched, a presence just beyond sight that grows stronger the longer one remains in the area. Eerie cries and sobs frequently fill the air after dark. Witnesses have described hearing mournful wails coming from clusters of older tombstones, voices that seem human but vanish when investigated. Children's laughter, faint and distorted, has also been reported, echoing along empty paths. Some claim these sounds are tied to tragedies from the past, whispering memories of those who died young, their spirits never finding peace. Apparitions are another hallmark of Forest Grove. Several visitors have reported shadowy figures appearing at the edge of the tree line or drifting slowly across the cemetery grounds. Some apparitions are described as misty outlines, almost human in shape, while others are more distinct, figures in old-fashioned clothing, their faces pale and expressionless. These sightings are often fleeting, disappearing the moment anyone approaches, leaving only a lingering sense of unease. Paranormal investigators frequently document activity in Forest Grove, capturing unexplained orbs, faint sounds, and sudden drops in temperature that defy natural explanation. The combination of visual, auditory, and sensory phenomena makes Forest Grove Cemetery a uniquely chilling location. Each shadow, each whisper, and each sudden chill tells a story of those who remain tethered to the living world, their grief, their sorrow, and perhaps their anger still echoing across the centuries. Walking through Forest Grove Cemetery at twilight is not a simple visit. It is an encounter with history that refuses to rest. The apparitions, cries, and cold gusts serve as a haunting reminder that some places carry the weight of the past so heavily that even the living feel the presence of the dead among them. Number 15. Elmwood Cemetery, Columbia. Elmwood Cemetery in Columbia is a sprawling resting place for generations, with grand family mausoleums, weathered gravestones, and winding pathways that seem endless in the fading light. By day, it is serene, almost peaceful, but as darkness falls, Elmwood transforms into a place where the living feel the gaze of the departed. Visitors often speak of an uneasy sensation, as though unseen eyes follow their every step along the mossy paths. One of the most frequently reported occurrences at Elmwood is the sighting of shadowy silhouettes near family mausoleums. People have described figures standing motionless, appearing just beyond the corner of their vision, only to vanish when turned toward. Some of these shapes are fleeting, barely discernible, while others linger long enough to cast doubt on reality itself. Disembodied footsteps echo across the cemetery at night. Walkers hear slow, deliberate steps on gravel or concrete, yet no one else is in sight. Occasionally, these steps match the pace of the observer, stopping abruptly when they pause, leaving an uncanny sense of presence. Alongside these sounds, faint whispers and murmurs have been reported, voices that drift across the grounds with no discernible source, chilling the bones of anyone who hears them. Elmwood Cemetery is also home to spirits said to roam freely at night. Visitors recount fleeting glimpses of figures walking between gravestones or sitting upon the cold stone benches that dot the grounds. Some believe these are the lingering souls of families long gone, tethered to their mausoleums by unresolved grief or unfinished business. The combination of shadowy silhouettes, disembodied footsteps, and roaming spirits creates an atmosphere of relentless tension. Paranormal investigators have captured strange orbs of light, cold spots, and faint recordings of whispers that seem almost conversational, as if the dead are attempting to communicate with the living. Each night spent at Elmwood brings a new story, a fresh encounter, or a chilling realization that some spirits never leave. Elmwood Cemetery is not merely a place of remembrance. It is a site where history and the supernatural collide, where family legacies mingle with restless souls, and where the line between life and death becomes unsettlingly thin. Those who enter after dark often leave with the memory of eyes in the shadows, footsteps that never belong to the living, and the understanding that at Elmwood, the past is always present. These cemeteries are more than resting places. They are echoes of the past that refuse to fade. Would you dare walk among the graves at midnight, feeling unseen eyes upon you, hearing whispers that do not belong to the living? Share your own experiences in the comments below. Like and subscribe to step even deeper into Missouri's haunted history, where every story proves that death